somebody who's been there before me, which, by the way, if that calls for me, tell them I'm still speaking. And by the way, is why I take my time to do events like this, because I learned from mentors. I had people that I learned from, so I thought the way to pay that back is to be a mentor later when I had that opportunity. Mentorship is very important, that we learn from each other. And believe me, I don't just come to Algeria to teach, I come here to learn as well. Well, like I said, when we were driving back from the airport, I was learning a lot just talking to a local entrepreneur about how things work here in your region. You learn something new every single day. But I started to observe the most successful people everywhere that I went and try to figure out what things do these really successful people do that they have in common. What common elements can you find in success stories? And one of the things that I noticed is that the most successful people I've ever met anywhere in the world, idea generation and innovation. Ideas were not accidents. Most of us think of innovation and ideas as something that happens, you're in the shower and you come up with a great idea, okay? And where does it go? Usually nowhere. It's a great idea. You could be at a meeting in your company. This used to frustrate me. We would be in the conference room and we'd all be talking, and somebody would have a really good idea. And you know what would happen? After we were done, we would all go back to our desk and go back to work. Where do those ideas go? They tend to go nowhere, right, when you have a good idea. So here's what I learned by studying successful people. They have a process, one for creating ideas, to stimulate their mind, to make good ideas keep flowing. And then second, what do you do with a good idea so that you give it a chance to be born, right? You take this idea and give it a chance to turn into something instead of having it float away. So let's talk about the first part. I came up with a technique to increase my chances of having good ideas, okay? And I call it, I don't really have a word, I've been calling it info sponging was this term. Yeah, there it is. For lack of a better word, but let me explain what the process is. This is something that I do. And here's what I noticed about success, the most successful people, is they look at the world in a much broader scope than everyone else. Their filter, their funnel, they take in a lot more information than everybody else every single day, and they narrow it down to come up with ideas. And what do I mean by that? If you work in the healthcare business, then what is it you do all day? All day you study healthcare, right? And that's what you look at all day. If somebody said to you, I wonder what they're doing in the banking industry, or travel, tourism, and hospitality, you would say, I don't know, I work in healthcare. You wouldn't even care because that's not your industry. But here's the thing, the most successful people stop and take time to look at a world much bigger than theirs. So what I do with this info sponging process is I take 20 minutes every single morning. Okay, if I'm traveling, like on the plane, I buy a bunch of magazines I wouldn't always buy. As a matter of fact, two of them I read on the flight here. One was African Business, and the other one was, I can't remember, it was another one similar to that, another African news magazine. Magazines I would never read otherwise. Okay, so what I do when I'm home is I go on the internet during these 20 minutes, and here's the key. Forget the company you work for. Forget the industry that you are in. If you are in government, forget it for right now. For 20 minutes, what I challenge you to do is let your mind wander and go explore things that you would never look at. If you work in healthcare, go read an article about banking. Why are you doing this? Because all around you, other industries, other countries, and other people are solving the same problem as you are with great innovation, and they're learning lessons and discovering things that could be extremely useful to you. I look for, every morning when I do this, so I just click on things on the internet. Here's a story about a new technology that was just introduced on mobile phones. Here's a story about something the banking industry is doing, even though I'm not in that industry. Here is a story about a new government legislation, new rules, new laws. I also look at cultural and consumer trends. For example, every single day, usually a couple times a day, I go on Yahoo, and at the top up there, it says top 10 searches right now. Why do I look at that? I don't know. What am I looking for? I'm trying to get a feeling for what is going on in the world. what are my customers thinking about? What are people interested in? What do they want to learn about? So every day I look at those top 10 searches several times a day. At the minimum, it's very entertaining because you think, why do people all over the world want to know about this right now? One time it was a particular insect called a stink bug, and everybody in the world was trying to find out about these bugs. I never found out why. But most of the time, so here's what you do in this process. Every day, when I do this process, I write down anything that looks interesting to me. Okay? So a new law was passed in a particular country. A new company was launched. A new technology was created. Consumers are all researching, interested in this topic or this person. I write down those points. Every single day, at the end of the 20 minutes, I write down what I learned, just sentences. Does it mean anything? Who knows? But what I do, think of this like a puzzle. Every day I collect more puzzle pieces. And I put them all on the table, and I look at them all, and I say, can I make anything out of these puzzle pieces? Most days, the answer is no. But the question that I ask specifically, the world moves very fast. While we are asleep, something happened somewhere in the world that might be useful to you in business, or might be an opportunity. So every day, I look at those puzzle pieces and I say, what can I do today that I could not do yesterday? Because every day is a new opportunity. You look at all those data points to see what you can do. I think I have, kind of an illustration. I don't literally put them on Post-it notes, but that's the idea. When you take these 20 minutes to explore the world, anything you see that's interesting, just write it down. Okay? And what you're trying to do is every day you look at all these things you wrote down, and eventually they start to form into a shape of some kind. And what will happen is, sometimes I'll be looking at it and I'll say, it might be day 80. Okay? For 80 days in a row, I looked at the stuff I wrote down, said, what could I create today? And I don't know. But all of a sudden, on day 81, what happens is you say, hey, wait a minute. If I took this point, and this is true, and this just happened, and this market just opened, now I've got something. Does that make sense to everybody? Because that is the sort of idea flow process. I'm going to show you a real example very quickly here. So in the upper left, I saw a TV news report about distressed inventory. And what the person said was, every day, this was a news report, and he said every day, and this is the United States number, but 600,000 airplane seats are flying around the country empty. At that point, what does that mean? I don't know. It was interesting. I wrote it down, okay, just because it was interesting. Then I read an article over here online about selling perishable goods. I don't sell perishable goods, so why would I read that? Okay, the story, by the way, was about selling fruit. I was pretty sure I was not going to get a job selling fruit, unless maybe it was in the parking lot of my old company, just to see who's still there. The perishable commodity article talked about the fact that a banana lasts for 3 days, and then you have to sell it. So the way you sell perishable products is different. Did that mean anything in my life then? No, but it was interesting. So I took only those 20 minutes, I read the story, and wrote it down. Okay, over here, dynamic pricing. I read another story about yield management systems. I didn't really even know much about what they are, and the fact that there are some industries that change the price of their product or service all day long in real time. They constantly look at supply and demand and reprice their items, okay? So here's the point. All these things, when I looked at all these data points, each one on its own, I couldn't do anything with it. But one day we put all those notes on the table, like pieces of a puzzle, and we said, what could we do with this information today that we couldn't do yesterday? And the answer was that. We realized that if you treated airplane seats and hotel rooms like a banana, a perishable commodity that you got to sell right now before it spoils, as soon as you close the airplane door, the goods are gone. They're spoiled. And we looked at yield management, the fact that prices change all the time on airplane seats. And we looked at, the distressed inventory, the fact that inventory distribution systems are not 100% efficient. There's unsold stuff in every industry that's just sitting there that they'll take something for. I can't get you $400 for this empty hotel room, but would you take $80 rather than zero? Because right now you're getting zero. We put all those things we learned together, and we launched a company that, again, went from, in fact, Earlier this year, we got an award that we went to get at the White House, this Impact Award, and some people from the U.S. Department of Chamber of Commerce came and told me that Priceline was one of only, I think, less than 20 companies. It's kind of irrelevant because this couldn't exist before the internet, but I think there were only 20 companies in U.S. history that went from $0 at start to $1 million in revenue in 2 years. We were one of the only companies that's ever done that. It never would have happened if we weren't looking at ideas outside of our world every day. So that's the importance of you guys studying a world that's bigger than yours. You, in the end, may launch a local company right here in Algeria or in the region, but your idea has to be broad, and that's how you continue to get good ideas.